you're kind of forced to take a stand. That old cliche is out the window now. Now I say, if people tell you not to mix business with politics, mix it harder, because that's the world we live in right now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brandon Lewis, founder of the Tennessee Conservative, and today, Tony Vitolo. Am I pronouncing that correct, Tony?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Yes, Tony Vitolo, proprietor at Jake's Bar and Grill in Harriman, Tennessee, joins me. And Tony has a remarkable story to tell about modern day discrimination and racism that was publicly perpetrated against his business. Now, you might think, if you watch a lot of Hollywood films, that this was done by a roving band of white supremacists or neo-Nazis, or maybe even, usually they like to drag the Third Reich back up and they came down to Harriman and did this. No, this was done by our federal government and the Small Business Administration that are supposed to really help small businesses, but apparently they've gotten into the racism and the discrimination business here recently. And Tony had to take some action, and we're going to learn about what that action was and what it might mean for you and your small business and other Tennesseans. And Tony's story is, in my opinion, one of courage, and we need to pay attention to it here in Tennessee. Tony, welcome to the program.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Well, so tell our listeners and watchers a little bit about your background and your business. You're obviously a Democrat. I can tell just by looking at the backdrop. But tell people a little bit about your background in business.
I didn't put that up just for this interview. It's in my office every day. So yeah, don't think I just put it up. But no, my business has been around here for the restaurant itself's been here for about 8-9 years, and I've been the owner for 3 years. I moved here from Florida. I'm originally from New York, and my family and I've been here for 3 years. I got 3 kids, and all girls, and my wife at home.
Very cool. Well, talk about how your business and your personal finances were impacted by Tennessee's arbitrary, and in my opinion, these are my words, capricious restrictions during COVID. I consult small businesses all over the nation. That's my main gig. I do this because I love conservatism. But I've watched small businesses be decimated by Tennessee leadership at the hands of our governor and legislature that did very little to help us. Meanwhile, large corporations, Lowe's, Home Depot, Amazon, they were, basically allowed to operate their business in a very unfettered manner. So talk a little bit about what all the changes and the press alarmism, what did it do to your small business, and what position were you in when you tried to apply for some of these PPP funds that were specifically earmarked for restaurants like yours who had received such poor treatment?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, we were borderline running out of funds to operate. We were closed for quite a while last year during COVID, and I agree with you 100%. The arbitrary and I think you say capricious acts by the state and closing down, and making the rules that they did. It could have been worse. It could have been, like some of the blue states, but it's still, I think, even what did happen was unnecessary. We were closed for a couple months, and that was during the time when the governor did an executive order for us to do what was it, half capacity, I think, or it was carry out only at first. It was carry out only, and we just didn't have enough business in the area here. We're pretty rural around here to support during the week carry out. So we ended up opening only on the weekends for carry out, and still my sales took a significant hit. So it went on like that for quite a while, and then we faced a whole bunch of new problems come the summertime. After people start going back out to eat, and the crowds start filling back up, and then lo and behold, nobody has any staff to employ anybody to serve people. So we're facing those problems right now. So that's kind of where we're at. I got 2/3 of my restaurant shut down due to staffing. People that didn't come back after COVID or that I lost during or after it. and just now nobody needs to work because they're getting all this free money. So we're we're pretty short staffed and things. So.
Well, Tony, I'm an old man, so you need to speak up a little bit.
Sorry about that.
I can hear you, but
Too much.
you're whispering a little bit like Bill Anderson would in an old country song. So, and I understand it. To me, it's like the government. There's something going on, right? And instead of taking a fly swatter to the fly, they take a hammer to the whole table. And once they've completely demolished the table, they start fixing the problem. In which case, then they just burn the table.
Yeah, when the
and
government
this is
says they're
what
going
they
to fix anything, it just gets worse. Yeah, the
Yes,
government doesn't.
every time the governor opens his mouth and says he's here to help in Tennessee, or the government in general, I'm like, please quit helping. Please quit helping. We can't stand any more help. And so your small business applied for this funding, and talk about what happened and talk about the messages that you received from the Small Business Administration.
So I think, can you hear me a little better now? Is it better
Yes,
for you?
definitely.
I think it opened up May 3rd. It was a Monday. I believe it was May 3rd when the Small Business Association's Restaurant Revitalization Fund first became active, and you were able to apply. You could actually register to apply the Friday before that to get ready and get your account set up. So Monday comes, it's the first day you're actually able to apply. So I applied within the first few hours of the program being open for this, pretty much this grant money that's coming from the government, to help restaurant owners and other types of businesses in that industry, like bakeries and things like that. So I applied for it. I got an email immediately from the SBA after I applied, telling me that, thank you for your application. It's pretty much going to sit on hold for 3 weeks, for 21 days. It's a 21-day grace period that quote unquote priority applicants had to get their applications processed first. So they weren't even going to look at my application for 21 days until day 22 of that, at which time most of the money, that was the biggest fear, was that the money was going to run out. I think it did. It's gone now. So that was the issue at hand. So when you look at who they identified, the SBA identified as priority applicants, they identified all women and certain minorities, African Americans, Hispanics. There were some minority groups that we'd consider minorities that didn't even qualify for it there, but it was the main certain minorities here in America that qualified as priority. So that's the email I got right away after that.
So we can look at this. So the first thing the government does is they take away your livelihood without any type of compensation. Governor Lee's not coming down there to bail your family out. He's a very wealthy man. To my knowledge, I don't think that he has written any personal checks to help out any of the businesses that, in many cases, he absolutely closed through his draconian, I think, oppression of liberty and freedom. And like you said, it could have been worse, which maybe Tennessee, maybe his governing campaign slogan in the next time he runs could be, I suck less than Democrats. And so at any rate, they've done all this to you, and then they say, well, we're here to help. We're going to help you out. And then they decide, oh, I'm sorry, you were born. Not that you had any choice to be born a male or white, but you were born. And you did not get the I was born lottery, was not just right. And so we're going to be racist and discriminate against you because you were one of half of the people on the earth that happen to have a certain chromosome, and that you happen to be a European American. So is that the size of it? That's
pretty much it. Yeah. So it was, a lot of people have probably seen Biden's clip about how, we're going to help the minority business owners. We're going to help the women business owners, and that's where their focus is. It's clearly on equity right now, and advancing equity, Marxist principles in racial justice and quote unquote systemic racism and critical race theory and all that. And this is just another step in their agenda towards that direction. Everybody knew it before Biden even took office. He was just following through with what he said, and that was what he was doing during this program.
So I'm going to take a quick break and ask you a question. At your restaurant, do you have tasty beverages?
Of course, yeah.
Very tasty beverages. We're going to send some people over to your restaurant before the program is over. But for those of you who watch and listen to and read the Tennessee Conservative, we can't do it without grassroots support. And if you go to TennesseeConservative.com/support, and if you give $50 or more, you get this wonderful Proud Tennessee Conservative tumbler. And if you put Evan Williams in there, and if you shake it up, and what comes out is single barrel Jack Daniels. It has magical properties, and you could probably use that there at your restaurant to upgrade all of the well bourbon that you serve, if you're allowed to do that. And if you give any amount, you get 2 Proud Tennessee Conservative bumper stickers. We'll mail that to you along with the directory of your state senators and state legislators, and you can contact them when you see things coming down the pipe. So you get this email that says, "I'm sorry, we're reverting back to Jim Crow days. We've just picked a new group of people to be racist against because it's in vogue and it's popular."
Jim Eagle is what Biden said, didn't he?
Say that
make
again?
Jim Crow. Didn't Biden say we're going to make Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle? That's what he said. So yes,
I guess so.
Jim Eagle. I forgot what he said, but he was.
And so they've decided this new modern day racism that's in vogue, this discrimination. And so what did you do when you got that email, and then what did you do to take action or to try to help your struggling small business that would have just been fine if the government had left you alone in the first place?
Yeah, my wife is half Hispanic also, so and obviously she's a woman, so that if she was 51% owner on this business, we would have qualified, but because we're 50-50 as a marriage, we still didn't qualify. I basically held her down in that with my whiteness, I guess. So I got the email, and coincidentally, the week before that, I had heard the story about the farmers in the Midwest who had their COVID aid denied to them due to being white. They weren't even, I don't know if you're familiar with the story. In the Midwest, there's a group of farmers that I guess there's another program that Biden dished out in one of his packages, and they're forgiving loans and mortgages and farm equipment loans for farmers, but you have to be a minority farmer. You can't even apply if you're a white farmer. So a group of them sued. And I had heard that story. That's still a pending lawsuit currently. I had heard that story on the news. And so I reached out to the law firm that represented them, the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty up in Wisconsin. And I said, hey, I don't know if you guys are familiar with what's going on here with restaurants, but it's pretty similar to your farmer case. And I don't know if you know anything about it. So they reached out to me immediately, and were very interested in it. And they hadn't heard much about it, but they've been getting some complaints from across the country from other restaurant owners. And so they had a bunch of questions, and they took some time to go over the case and to see if there was any issues here, any constitutional violations. And sure enough, there were, and they jumped all over it, and they took it, and we sued them. We sued the SBA.
So again, I should seem a little fired up about this, and sometimes I use some strong language, but to me, this whole thing is what got me back into it. I used to be in this. I hibernated for 6 years. The lockdowns just really shook me to my core, because I believe it was a moral and ethical failing on the part of our governor and our legislature and the government, and federally and culturally. I think we have failed ourselves by allowing our freedoms and liberties to be taken so easily. So walk through the legal battle. They take your case. What happens?
Yeah, they took the case. We filed in federal court in Chattanooga, and we went before, I forgot his name. All right, he was the federal judge in Chattanooga. And he was an Obama appointed judge, and we basically lost the case there. They were trying to get an immediate injunction on the program to stop it nationwide before the money was exhausted, so that they can go back and do it right, first come, first serve, or any other factors other than race or sex being the unconstitutional factors there. So we took it before that judge. He issued a ruling in a few days denying the motion for the injunction. And so after that, we immediately, the next day, they already had the paperwork prepared, and they filed an appeal to the Sixth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals. I think it's in Cincinnati. I'm not quite sure where exactly they are based out of, but and we won that appeal. So it was a 2-1 decision. It was a Reagan judge and a Trump judge, Judge Thapar, I think, who was once considered for the Supreme Court, voted in favor of us against an Obama appointed judge in that court.
So that just goes to show you how important all of the judicial appointments that were made
Yeah.
in the last administration were, because
Yes.
were it not for those people, number one, justice was not delivered in Chattanooga because there was somebody that, instead of looking at the law, had a political axe to grind. And then if it weren't for that last judge being appointed at this appellate position, then I don't know, it'd been 50-50, or you would have lost your case there. Is that correct?
Yeah, most likely. I've said that same thing over and over again. If Trump did anything that was worth him being there, it was the judges alone that he elected, who were most likely far more conservative than he was. So
Exactly. So what are the next steps here? Now the appeal has been granted, and is the injunction in force? Is it being fought tooth and nail? I assume it is, by Biden's lawyers and other people who love racism in our country, want to see it reinstated, but for a different group of people. Talk about what the next steps are and where you go from here.
So the ruling that came down in the appeals court in the Sixth Circuit was, they essentially ruled it for me in my case alone, that my constitutional rights were violated based on sex and gender, and that I was entitled to the funds that they told me I would qualify for. And apparently the SBA had set aside a separate account holding those funds in case we did win. That was just news that I had heard, but so I did get funded, and with what they told me that they were going to fund me with. But so the day after, a few days after we won, the law firm added on about 5 more plaintiffs from around the country, from New York City to California, added on to the lawsuit to seek for the funds for them, and also to just keeping people aware of what's going on, and to try to get a stop to this program. But at this point, the money's already dished out. They've already sent emails out saying, and that was part of the issue. Before I was even funded, we got an email from the SBA saying, we've got applications in that cover 3 times the amount of money that we already have allocated in this account. So pretty much the funds are gone, and they were ordered to produce paperwork to that effect to the court, so that the court can make the decision and what's going on and how fast this money is going out the door and how much of an emergency it is. So yeah, so there's no more funds left, and I don't even know if the other plaintiffs in the case are getting funded or not. I have no idea. The only thing that I heard was that possibly in the next package, one of the next stimulus packages that Biden plans on rolling out, they're going to include more funds for this program because they ran out. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's just something that I had heard. So essentially, it's more of a precedent-setting case that, for the next time this happens, which I'm sure it will, the Sixth Circuit could say, hey, we ruled on this, and you cannot. Pretty much the ruling was you cannot dish out COVID money with factors of race or sex. If you want to dish it out based on who received PPP loans, or based on your sales, or some kind of mathematical calculation that says you're worse off than somebody else, fine. If I didn't qualify for it, then I didn't qualify for it. I'll go to the back of the line. But if you're gonna dish it out and automatically say for the first 21 days I can't qualify for any funds because I'm white and because I'm male, that's absolutely unconstitutional. Could you imagine if it was reversed? Could you imagine if I put a sign on the front of my door that said, I don't serve certain minorities or women here, how fast I'd end up on the wrong side of a federal lawsuit? It's unbelievable that they're turning around and doing this back to us. So, that's, my wife asked me after I got that original email, she said, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know, but I'm going to try and sue the hell out of them. It doesn't get clearer than that kind of violation,
Well, and even the thing that often surprises me, Tony, is even if you are a Democrat and for some reason you think, well, there is systematic racism, and we do need to help people because of because of things we never did to people that are dead, etc. That's the view you hold. And when you do stuff like this, at some point, when a precedent is set that you can discriminate based on race or sex, when will your race or sex be next? I mean, take a look at the history of racism in the United States, primarily driven by Democrats and leftists. You never know when your turn is going to be, and we don't need anybody to be having a turn at something that God and the Scriptures clearly frowns against looking at people through the lens of sex or ethnicity or anything else. And so it's just shameful in the United States of America in 2021 that progressive ideas are to go back to communism, socialism, and racism. That's progressive. But I just changed the name to the Regressive Party. So, you and I are both small business owners. We've been very outspoken, I would say unafraid. You even had, before, I think at your establishment, I read an article where you had told folks you weren't going to show a lot of the professional sports teams that were denigrating America, that were kneeling for the flag, that were pushing things that are against traditional American values, and you stood up. Let me ask you this very important question. As I have started this publication myself, and as I go across Tennessee, and we got tons of subscribers, I am surprised and amazed at how, I don't hate to use this word in the way I'm going to use it, how cowardly small business owners that are conservative are to express their views and opinions, where liberal and leftist small business owners, fly their freak flag as much as they want to. And so what in the world is going on, and when will conservative business owners realize that if they don't wake up and get politically engaged, there won't be anything to get engaged with?
I'm glad you asked that question. So we live in a time now where it's completely different than 10 years ago. It's different than 5 years ago. There, I'm sure you've heard, and everybody out there has heard the saying, don't mix business with politics, don't mix business with religion, and things like that. And that's great. And it was great for a time. The problem now is we've kind of been drug into the fight. By the major leftist corporations. I say, why don't you say that to Starbucks? Why don't you say that to Amazon? Why don't you say that to Walmart? Why don't you say that to all the major corporations that are Target, that are clearly out there taking these sides and these stands and making their politics and their religion, which is, the anti-God religion, clear to everybody. So they've kind of drawn a line in the sand. And now everybody, you're kind of forced to take a stand. And that old cliche is out the window now. Now I say, if people tell you not to mix business with politics, mix it harder, because that's the world we live in right now. And you're either gonna, you're either gonna stay silent and be controlled, or you're gonna take a stand and you're not gonna be controlled, and you're gonna fight for the liberties and the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the things that many of our ancestors died for to protect. They're trying to be undone right now. So you're right. I did that post last summer after everything was coming out with BLM and Marxist stuff in the sports arenas, in Major League Baseball, in the NBA, NFL, and we're primarily a sports bar. And I mean, I have 14 televisions and 15 beers on tap, and I said, I'm not going to show any of their sports. And I did the post because I wanted my customers primarily to know why it's not going to be on our television. So when you come here, don't expect it to be on. If you don't want to come, then don't come, but don't expect it to be on the television. And it kind of went semi-viral, not really viral, and I got all sorts of hate from all around the country, from particularly leftist people and organizations from on the West Coast. Majority. I got a lot of calls from California, Oregon, people trying to make fake orders. I got tons of 1-star reviews on Google that didn't even make sense, and people never even been here. But the crazy thing is, from the people in our area, I got nothing but support. Everybody that was local, everybody that I ever saw, everybody that was in person, everybody that was actually off the computer and in face to face, was all supportive. I haven't received any kind of hate whatsoever. It's all from people hiding in their mom's basement on their computer in their liberal groups, tagging liberal groups, so that other people can see the post and sharing it in those groups and just tell, hey, go, let's try to cancel them. We'll do the 1-star reviews. And after going through that, the last thing I'm worried about now is being canceled or doxxed. Cancel culture doesn't affect me. In fact, I welcome it. So, but yeah, that was the post I did.
Well, one of the things that you talked about, fighting for freedom, and you think it's a federal issue. It's not. We've got rhino Republicans in government in Tennessee that are cowardly, that will not stand up for individual liberty and freedom. And we watched that on full display as they hid behind the governor's skirt in the legislature all during the COVID nightmare that they could have stopped with a special session, but never did. Now they're allowing illegal immigration to run rampant, but they put together a study committee, which I'm sure will just run out there and really take a lot of concerted action to stop this. But that's why we're having the Tennessee Freedom Summit on July 10th. And I hope you can make it there. It's in McDonald, Tennessee. I think you live in Ooltewah, but you travel to Harriman, correct?
Yeah, currently I do. Yeah, so it's about an hour drive each way. So
if you don't have to work your tail off that Saturday because you can't find any staffing, maybe you could come down there and join us.
Yeah, I looked into it. I'm going to try and be there. I'm going to try. I looked into it and was checking the times out. So definitely going to try. I'd love to be there. But
well, if you head out about this, you can come as my guest. Just shoot me an email. I'll feed you breakfast and lunch. You can come as my guest. No payment required. And if you're out there watching this and you are a subscriber to the Tennessee Conservative and you go to Harriman, Tennessee, I want you to stop by Jake's Bar and Grill in Harriman. I want you to go, if you can, to find them on Google and give them a 5-star review and talk about how awesome they are. And I would also like you to tip the waitresses and the bartenders there and let them know that you appreciate conservative businesses that stand up against a lot of this. If there's anything that you want to leave us with, in particular, on the topic of finding courage as a conservative, what would you say?
Like you mentioned in your last segment there when you were speaking, it's going to have to start locally. It can't start at a federal level. It can't start at a large state level. It has to start local. Your county commissions, your school boards, things like that. So especially in the schools today. I've got 2 of my kids in the public schools. With the introduction of critical race theory and things like that trickling in, even in Tennessee and in Hamilton County there. That's where we have to start. We have to start locally. We have to get like-minded folks in office in those positions and just, stand up against and rid out that cancer that's trickling its way through our system. And people can't be scared and people can't be afraid to speak out. Don't be afraid of cancel culture. Don't be afraid of being doxxed. I know it's easy for me. I'm self-employed. I have my own business. I'm my own boss. So I'm not going to get fired, obviously. My sales might get affected in some ways, but I'm not going to lose my job for the most part. And there's some folks out there that work for the government or teachers or other professions who can't speak out because they'd be afraid to lose their jobs. And that's understandable. But like I said earlier, there's been a line drawn in the sand. And we're in a day and an age now where people have to stand up and take sides. And that side is going to become very important in the future. So stand up and stand.
I could not have said it better myself. And I wish small business owners out there had a third of your courage. And if they did, none of this nonsense would have got started in the first place. Thank you very much, Tony. I appreciate you for coming on the program today. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right, guys, if you have not subscribed at the Tennessee Conservative to get our e-newsletter or to get our text alerts, if you would go there, you can go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com. We'll send you everything you need right in your email box so that you can keep up with stories like Tony's and also via text just in case we are ever censored by social media companies. Not that they would ever do that, not that that would ever happen in the freest country in the history of the world, but it might. Brandon Lewis here with Tennessee Conservative News. I'll talk to you next time.